a $44,900 BMW that only 13 people on Earth can own, a motorcycle powered by a Soviet tank engine that tips the scales at nearly 5 tons, and a streamliner that hit 376 miles per hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats with a human being strapped inside. Those are just 3 of the 16 most impossible motorcycles ever built, and every single one of them is real. This was a subscriber pick, so let's get into it. The Ziller's R18. Most motorcycles lean on a kickstand when they park. This one drops to the ground and rests on a pair of metal spikes, with the kickstand gone entirely. That air suspension trick is the signature move of Dmitry Golubchikov. BMW said the R18 was predestined for customizing, and Golubchikov took that personally, wrapping the whole bike in hand-formed carbon fiber, CNC milled aluminum wheels with forged aero disc covers, and a handcrafted titanium exhaust. When you ride it, the bike lifts up and moves like anything else on 2 wheels. When you park it, it sinks to the ground on those spikes. He tucked the speedometer inside the fuel filler neck and buried the instrument panel into the tank cap. The factory 1802 cubic centimeter Boxer twin stays untouched, still kicking out 91 horsepower and 116 pound-feet of torque. Only 13 of these exist worldwide, sold through Enmoto. You can buy it fully assembled, which takes about 6 months, or as a kit for self-assembly in about 4. The price starts at $44,900. TMC Dumont. The TMC Dumont runs a 300 horsepower Rolls-Royce Continental Flat 6 aircraft engine from the 1960s, and it sits between 2 massive 36-inch hubless wheels that look like they belong in a science fiction movie. The wheels have no spokes and no central hub, so they just float there on underslung swing arms. And when the bike idles at a standstill, you can actually see the rims flex and wobble under the weight of the engine. Marquez spent 15 years chasing this idea before he found the right engine, and once he sourced it, the build took 7 months at his shop in Brazil. He custom fabricated every single component, including a continuously variable transmission he had to design from scratch, because you just cannot bolt a flat 6 aircraft engine to a motorcycle drivetrain with anything off the shelf. The Dumont debuted at the 77th Daytona Bike Week in 2018, the biggest motorcycle customization event in the world, and walked away with Best in Show against 100 competing builds. When asked why he built it, Marquez said he wanted a bike that people genuinely believed was fake. The Panzer bike. In 2003, brothers Thilo and Wilfried Niebel of the Harzer Bike Schmiede workshop in Ziller were picking through the rubble of a demolished Red Army barracks in Halberstadt, Germany, looking for reusable parts when they came across a cutaway model of a Soviet T-55 tank engine. They became so fascinated by its inner workings that they asked if they could take it home. That engine sparked an obsession. It took 3 years to track down a working T-55 in Mecklenburg, and once they had it, the brothers locked themselves in their shop for close to a year. What rolled out was Katharina die Große, which translates to Catherine the Great, a roughly 19-foot-long motorcycle weighing about 10,470 pounds, running a 38,000 cubic centimeter diesel engine that was originally built to push a Soviet battle tank across a battlefield. They went through about 264 pounds of welding wire and put in 5,000 hours to finish it. In 2007, it entered the Guinness World Records as the heaviest rideable motorcycle on the planet, and it held that title until 2012. And here is where it gets absurd. Every single part on this machine came from the former Soviet military bloc. The massive undercarriage was salvaged from a Russian medium-range missile transport case. The headlight was pulled from a border checkpoint once operated by the East German government. Even the diesel return line came from a blood transfusion device the brothers found in an abandoned military hospital. It seats 2 riders and can actually move in reverse, because good luck pushing nearly 5 tons of Soviet hardware when you need to park. The Ack Attack. For over 15 years, the Ack Attack has been the fastest thing on 2 wheels, and nobody has come close. On September 25th, 2010, Rocky Robinson climbed inside a bullet-shaped streamliner on the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. and clocked a two-way average of 376.363 miles per hour, making him the fastest motorcycle rider who has ever lived. His one-way exit speed on the return pass hit 394 miles per hour, and according to Robinson himself, the onboard data loggers showed the machine crossing 400 miles per hour before he started slowing down, though that number was never made official. Engineer Mike Ack Attack designed and built the whole thing from the ground up. Two turbocharged 1,300 cubic centimeter Suzuki Hayabusa inline four-cylinder engines push somewhere between 700 and 900 horsepower through a water-cooled chain system to a single rear wheel. The whole machine stretches about 20 feet long, sits 2.5 feet off the ground, and weighs roughly 1,650 pounds. From the outside, it barely looks like a motorcycle because that carbon fiber and chromoly shell is shaped to do one thing: cut through air. But the controls inside are surprisingly normal. A right-side throttle, a nitrogen-assisted clutch on the left, and a standard foot-operated gear shifter. Stopping is the insane part, because at those speeds, disc brakes are useless. So Robinson pulled triggers on the right side of the cockpit to deploy 2 parachutes. He had actually broken the record twice before, in 2006 and 2008. And in 2007, he lost control going over 320 miles per hour and rolled the machine 16 times. He walked away from that, came back the next year, and broke the record again. The 2010 mark still stands, partly because the Bonneville salt flats have been falling apart year after year, with softer salt, standing water, and bad weather making it harder and harder for anyone to even attempt a run. Gangrana. Artem Boldarev, a motorcycle builder and popular blogger out of Yekaterinburg, Russia, decided that a 300 horsepower Lexus 5.8 needed to exist on 2 wheels. He pulled a 3U ZFE engine from a donor car, kept the front automatic transmission from an all-wheel drive Toyota Mark II Blit, and fabricated the rest of the motorcycle entirely by hand, from the frame and fuel tank to the seat and suspension. To get that much torque to the rear wheel without ripping it apart, he designed a dual chain system because a single chain would have buckled under the force of a V8 sending power through a motorcycle drivetrain. The rear wheel alone stretches about 14.25 inches wide, and he ordered it from the United States because that size simply did not exist anywhere in Russia. He kept the total length under about 10 feet so the bike would stay street legal, and then welded together a Fallout-inspired helmet to complete the look. Because when you are riding a V8 rat bike through the streets of a Russian city, you might as well commit to the aesthetic. The whole idea started after he test rode a Boss Hoss motorcycle in the United States and wanted something even more aggressive. Gangrana sits somewhere between Mad Max and a fever dream, and despite looking like it belongs in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, it reportedly rides smooth. The Red Baron. The Red Baron carries 9 cylinders arranged in a circle around a central crankshaft, all of them bolted to a chopper frame, and German tinkerer Frank Ola spent 18 months making it work. The engine is a Rotec Radial R3600 aircraft engine, putting out 150 horsepower, basically a modern version of the radial engines that powered early fighter planes, and squeezing that into a motorcycle meant Oli had to build every surrounding part himself. The frame, the headlight, the exhaust routing, the drivetrain, all of it had to come from his own hands because off-the-shelf parts just could not work with a radial engine. The hardest part was figuring out how to get the power from that circular firing pattern through a usable drivetrain to a single rear wheel, and solving that ate up most of those 18 months. He named the bike after Manfred von Richthofen, the legendary World War I fighter pilot who flew a red Fokker triplane, and painted the motorcycle to match. A small propeller sits on the front of the engine and spins when the bike runs. Purely decorative, but watching this thing roll past with a spinning prop on the nose just hits different. The gas tank sports a painted bomb design, and the silhouette is pure chopper tradition, stretched to absurd proportions by the massive radial at its heart. When it fires up, it fills the air with this deep mechanical rumble like something out of an old airfield, and the plume of smoke that follows is visible from a block away. Sam Turner's Diesel Beast. The engine came from a cement mixer, the intercooler came from a Suzuki Swift. The hydraulic hub motors came from a salt spreader, the gear pump from a log splitter, and the wheels from a Toyota Camry. And, yeah, one part literally came from a kitchen sink. Sam Turner grew up riding motorcycles from age 8 and learned to weld by 12. He spent his career as a diesel mechanic for the United States Postal Service, and every bit of that know-how went into building the world's first hydrostatic twin-turbo diesel all-wheel drive motorcycle. The heart of it is an 840 cubic centimeter Yanmar direct injection diesel V-twin ripped from a Sunbelt cement mixer. He strapped a pair of RHB31 turbochargers to either side and kept them cool with that Suzuki Swift intercooler. He originally wanted a diesel-electric setup, where the engine would power a generator feeding electric motors at each wheel, but the cost killed the idea. So Turner went with hydrostatic drive instead, which forces pressurized hydraulic fluid through hub motors rather than using chains or a drive shaft. The hollow frame itself doubles as the hydraulic fluid reservoir, a trick he borrowed from Buell's approach to fuel storage. The whole bike stretches 11 feet 3 inches long, sits 32 inches tall at the seat, and rides on adjustable airbag suspension that lets the motorcycle drop to the ground and rest on its frame rails when parked, so there is no kickstand at all. When Turner appeared on the Discovery Channel show Diesel Brothers, he pointed at that kitchen sink part and confirmed it with a straight face. Fabio Reani's monster. You need a ladder just to reach the seat. On March 24, 2012, Italian product designer Fabio Reani rode a motorcycle standing 16 feet, 8.78 inches tall from the ground to the top of the handlebars over a roughly 330-foot course in Montecchio Emilia, Italy, and that ride locked in the Guinness World Record for the tallest rideable motorcycle on Earth. The thing is built on a 6-to-1 scale of a standard chopper, stretching over 32 feet long and weighing about 11,000 pounds. The wheels are repurposed from industrial excavators, with the rear wheel alone tipping the scales at about 2,600 pounds. Reani led a team of 8 people who spent 7 months putting the machine together, and that rear wheel gave them the most trouble because rims that size just do not exist commercially, so they had to make everything by hand. A modified 5.7-liter Chevrolet Vifure 8 engine putting out 280 horsepower drives, the whole thing through a 3-speed transmission with reverse. From the seat, all you can really see is the fuel tank and the road ahead. And Reani has joked that building a bigger one would be a nightmare. Over a decade later, nobody has tried. His motorcycle also holds the Guinness World Record for the heaviest rideable motorcycle at roughly 11,000 pounds, a title it took from the Panzer bike in 2012. The world's longest. At 86 feet 3 inches long, roughly the same length as a school bus, there is a motorcycle that holds the Guinness World Record for the longest ever built. On January 22, 2014, a 30-year-old fabricator named Bharat Singh Parmar from Gujarat, India, rolled it out at Lakhota Lake in the city of Jamnagar, beating the previous record by more than 13 feet. He built it on a modified Bajaj Pulsar, converting the entire drivetrain from chain to shaft drive and running a custom shaft the full length of the bike to keep the rear wheels spinning at that absurd distance from the engine. The hard part was keeping a single shaft rigid enough to send power across 86 feet without bending or snapping under torque. And to prove it could actually work as a motorcycle, he rode the full 330-foot qualifying stretch without putting his feet down, which is terrifying when you think about trying to keep an 86-foot-long two-wheeled vehicle upright in a straight line. Parmar also fabricated a roughly 40-foot-long shovel, a matching rake, and an oversized pair of crutches to go along with the build, because he clearly had more Guinness records on his mind. He currently holds 5 Guinness records and 12 entries in the Limca Book of Records, which is India's version of the record book. The motorcycle still holds the title today. The Crown. Dirk Olerking of Kingston Custom took a factory BMW R18, stripped it down to bare metal, and started sculpting. He shaped hard foam and cardboard into new forms before committing to aluminum, then hand-hammered the entire body, including a roughly 2-gallon fuel tank, from sheet metal less than 1/10 of an inch thick. He built it as a gift to BMW Motorrad for their 100th anniversary and brought it out during the BMW Motorrad Days in Berlin from July 7th through 9th, 2023. He completely reworked the front suspension with double-sided swing arms and center suspension struts, giving the bike a profile that looks like a Swiss watchmaker had a hand in it. To let the 1,802 cubic centimeter Boxer twin breathe under all that custom bodywork, he handcrafted 2 stainless steel exhaust manifolds. The finished bike wears a mother-of-pearl champagne platinum finish with a small crown worked into the BMW emblem. Olerking said, "This is the best thing he has ever built, and considering he is the same guy who put out the Spirit of Passion, an Art Deco R18 that turned heads back in 2021, that says a lot." He kept the original R18's rear suspension, headlights, instrument panel, switch unit, and footrest system, but rethought and rebuilt everything else from the ground up. Venom, a stock Harley-Davidson V-Rod, rolls on a rear tire about 7 inches wide. Big Bad Customs in the United Kingdom looked at that and decided to double it. The Venom, built for owner Salman Otaifi out of Saudi Arabia, carries a rear tire nearly 16 inches wide, mounted on a single-sided swing arm with a front tire over 10 inches wide, making it the first and only V-Rod on Earth with that setup. Building the single-sided swing arm alone was a serious job because the Harley parts catalog has nothing that works with a tire that wide on one side, so every bracket, mount, and axle point had to be designed and machined from scratch. The bike runs air suspension to adjust ride height on the fly, dropping low when parked and rising for clearance while moving. The finish layers Bronzo Zenith, a color pulled from the Lamborghini palette, alongside matte carbon fiber accents. And the center console houses a custom digital display with programmable strobe effects and gear indicators you can control through a smartphone app. The headlight is a CNC machined piece following the lines of the triple tree. The exhaust is a custom slash-cut system, Cerakoted black with carbon fiber heat shields. And even the rear brake hides behind a perimeter design that keeps the visual lines clean. Pure nastiness. Arlen Ness spent decades earning the title of godfather of custom bike building, so any tribute in his name had better earn it. Hawk Lawshe of Vintage Technologies answered with a golden 1966 Harley-Davidson shovel head called Pure Nastiness. And it does more than just honor the name. The build runs ultra-rare nitromethane drag racing components that are almost impossible to source today. Parts that most builders could spend years hunting for without finding a single one. And Lawshe swapped the cylinders to create a visual and mechanical profile that separates this bike from anything else in the shovelhead world. The silhouette is long and low, cutting through the air like a blade, and the gold finish catches light in a way that makes photographs feel inadequate. Every detail reflects the nitro-fueled, boundary-breaking spirit that Ness embodied during his career. Captain America. In 1969, Peter Fonda climbed onto a Stars and Stripes panhead chopper with extended forks and ape-hanger handlebars, and rode it across America in a film called Easy Rider. The movie cost about $400,000 to make and earned over $60 million at the box office, and that motorcycle became arguably the most recognized custom bike in cinematic history. Cliff Voss and Ben Hardy built the original Captain America choppers from 4 ex-police Harley-Davidsons that the production team acquired. Of the 4 bikes, 3 reportedly vanished before the premiere, broken down and sold for parts. The 4th nearly blew apart during the final crash scene. Actor Dan Haggerty, who maintained the bikes during production, kept the wreckage and claimed to have rebuilt it. In October 2014, a version of the Captain America bike sold at auction through Profiles in History in Calabasas, California for $1.35 million, setting what was reported at the time as the highest price ever paid for a motorcycle at auction. Headlines went global, but so did the controversy. Fonda himself, who had initially authenticated the bike by signing the gas tank, later told the Los Angeles Times he had been misled and pulled his endorsement. It turned out Haggerty had authenticated a completely different Captain America bike during a separate sale in 1996, meaning the 2 allegedly genuine bikes now existed at the same time. Haggerty died in 2016. Fonda passed in 2019. the Tron light cycle. When Tron Legacy hit theaters in 2010, artist Daniel Simon designed a light cycle so visually striking that people immediately started asking whether it could exist off-screen. Parker Brothers Concepts, a Florida-based company that builds bonkers concept vehicles for clients ranging from Fortune 500 companies to NASA, decided to find out. They used Simon's actual blueprints as reference material and built the first rideable Tron replicas with Suzuki 996 cubic centimeter V-twin engines. Then came the electric version, originally called the Xenon, running on a 96-volt electric motor with lithium-ion batteries. Parker Brothers claimed a top speed in excess of 100 miles per hour and a range of about 100 miles per charge with a recharge time of around 35 minutes. The latest iteration, now called the Neutron, features upgraded bodywork, an AC induction motor, and electroluminescent strips embedded in the hubless rims that glow at night. Each bike rides on oversized tires, sits about 28 inches off the ground, and forces the rider into a full forward lean that looks exactly as uncomfortable and dramatic as you would expect from something ripped out of a digital world. Parker Brothers also built NASA's 2030 Mars rover concept, so the Tron bike is far from the strangest thing to roll out of their shop. Current pricing for the Neutron starts around $100,000, and only 25 units are being produced for 2025. The R9T Racer. Between 2017 and 2020, BMW sold what might be the most underappreciated cafe racer of the modern era, and then quietly killed it because the sales numbers did not justify the production cost. The R9T Racer was a deliberate love letter to the 1970s BMW motorsport aesthetic, wearing a tightly cut half-shell fairing in light white, with a silver frame and classic motorsport colors across the bodywork. Underneath the retro skin sat a very modern 1170 cubic centimeter air-cooled Boxer twin, producing 110 horsepower, paired with clip-on handlebars, rear-set foot pegs, and a racing solo seat that dropped the rider into an aggressive forward-leaning position, borrowed directly from the cafe racers that used to tear between coffee shops in 1960s London. BMW split the R9T platform's frame into 4 sections from day one, specifically so builders could swap, reshape, and rework the rear end with minimal effort. The Racer variant was BMW's own statement of what that platform could become when pushed toward pure sport. And the fact that it sold poorly says more about the market wanting comfort than it does about the motorcycle itself. Ziller's Garage, the same Russian workshop behind the R18 custom we covered earlier, actually won an AMD championship on the R9T platform before BMW even commissioned them for the R18 project, proving that the bones of this motorcycle were always capable of becoming something extraordinary. The Rebel Riders. In Indonesia, a Vespa is a canvas and sometimes a way of life. The Rebel Riders are a sprawling community of builders who take old Vespa frames and transform them using whatever materials they can find. Scrap metal, tree branches, industrial piping, discarded exhaust tubing, anything that can be welded or bolted becomes part of the build. CNN's Great Big Story segment featured mechanic Yogeek Hermawan Saifullah and the community he rides with, and the footage shows machines that look like they rolled out of a post-apocalyptic scrapyard designed by someone with an artist's eye and a welder's hands. Some of these builds stretch 10 feet long, while others sit inches off the ground, and a few incorporate tree trunks as structural elements, which sounds absurd until you see one rolling down a road at speed and realize it actually works. The culture runs on self-expression and community, with riders covering thousands of miles across the Indonesian archipelago together. Factory parts catalogs have no place in this world, and aftermarket kits would defeat the purpose entirely. Every single Rebel Rider machine is a one-off creation born from whatever the builder could source or trade for. And while most of the motorcycles on this list came out of professional workshops with dedicated tools and budgets, the Rebel Riders prove that the spirit of building something impossible lives wherever someone has a welder, a pile of scrap, and a vision that other people would call crazy.